For a long time it's been discussed how Joker could implement a somewhat Batman origin story. Now let me get this clear first, this film isn't meant to really focus on that, as we all know. This is an Elseworlds film, primarily being different from traditionalist canon of the crime alley scene that you may often refer to, and who did the deed. But I think you get that by now with how Joker and his two trailers are already depicting its differences, which I'm really interested in, but of course others are not. I actually discussed this specifically in my Why Joker Will Be Great video, which I definitely recommend you check out if you aren't necessarily down for this different take and canonical twist on traditional DC character lore. But that doesn't mean in this Elseworlds iteration that things won't play out ultimately in a similar way, with things such as the Waynes dying in Crime Alley, Bruce becoming Batman in his mid to late 20s, while we have an early 50s Joker. But that's just some fun fantasy speculation that, as I said, this film isn't intended for you to take this out or really even capitalize on it. It's more just that background world building detail. People are now even referring to Joker as the most non-comic book and yet comic book movie out there, which, I kind of tend to agree with, being that it is based on the Joker and will implement that DC Comics character and likely masterfully execute a very interesting story given the huge buzz around this movie and already receiving awards at film festivals. But it still will link and probably set up that future for Gotham City that is inevitable, being Batman. It's no surprise that, as everyone knows, Arthur Fleck is already much older than Bruce Wayne in this film, and that everyone has been speculating, especially with the interactions we know his character Joker and Thomas Wayne will have, has led many to think that he could be the cause of the death of the Waynes. This would also be very similar to Jack Napier killing Thomas and Martha Wayne in Batman 89. But why are we talking about this in today's video? Well, there is a scene in the trailer that I went over in my breakdown, which I will leave in the cards above just in case you missed it, but I actually missed out on one little detail that goes very quickly and is very, very interesting. So in both trailers for Joker we see many clown protests as well as riots, but in one specific scene we see a bunch of clowns seem to be doing the same shenanigans outside a theater, stealing things, smashing car windows, likely violence on upper class people, and I initially thought that it would be interesting if Robert De Niro's show, being called Live with Murray Franklin, was next to the riot that we're seeing in this specific scene, and in doing so could link to that moment that keeps getting teased in the trailers where Arthur Fleck goes on Murray Franklin's stage, introduced as Joker by request, and in this moment is where the clowns could possibly infiltrate the live audience, and in doing so, a lot of bad stuff going down. And don't forget guys, that this is at a point in the movie where Arthur Fleck has been empowered by his newly found Joker persona and finally has a stage with thousands of people watching in Gotham City, not to mention the live audience. Can you imagine what could happen? But the crucial detail that a lot of people may have missed here is that there is this figure who is very likely Arthur Fleck running amongst these clowns outside a movie theater, even though he doesn't seem to be in his Joker attire. But we also see Thomas Wayne, Martha Wayne, as well as the kid cast for Bruce Wayne, leaving this theater, and one of its films that we can see being advertised out the front of the movie theater is Excalibur, which, surprise surprise, is a film that has been shown at that tragic origin in Bruce's life alongside the Mark of Zorro, where Bruce and his parents, up and left before only being confronted in Crime Alley, similar to what we saw in Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice, displaying the same films. It's so obvious that they are chucking in Bruce Wayne's origin here, but let's not exactly pretend that we didn't speculate that this could happen in one way or another in this Elseworlds Joker movie. I mean, I've even said way before we even saw this scene we're breaking down in the final trailer that Bruce Wayne is about the right age for his parents to die in Crime Alley, and I always thought that they could tie it into this film, but I wasn't sure how much attention they'd pay to it. I initially thought that it could just be a reference in the headline or something similar, but now that this was included in the latest trailer, it seems that the next scene or two, either directly after this or several minutes later following the very picture you're seeing on screen, will be the Wayne family fleeing from the movie theater's location and running down an alley to get away from the riot, only then to be confronted by their murderer, thus bringing the origin for Batman. Now let's backtrack for a second. I can't guarantee that this figure here is Arthur Fleck, but it does look like him, whether that's the hairstyle to the body type and the clothes that he's wearing. I have to admit, even though I thought the Waynes could die in Joker, I didn't think they'd have Arthur do it. But if this is Arthur, and as we see, he's holding something here which isn't a gun, it seems to be something he could beat people with. Regardless, he could be involved. They could also easily go to the option that just one of the hundreds, if not thousands, of clown rioters confront the Waynes with a gun instead, while just having Arthur close to that infamous scene that we all know about, since it also looks as though Arthur prepares himself to strike whoever is in front of him in this scene stood outside the movie theater. But notice how this GCPD officer is right behind him, ready to tackle him, just as the Waynes are leaving. However, this doesn't mean that he won't escape the officer's grasp, and maybe even while he was in this struggle to get out of the officer's restraint, the Waynes make it to Crime Alley, but then Arthur could catch up, having spotted Thomas Wayne during all of this commotion, and then proceeds to catch up to them, and maybe he even has that very gun that we see him have in the first teaser trailer, even wielding it as he's quite literally looking at Thomas Wayne on TV. You see, all the dominoes are kind of falling in line here. But while we're on that subject, we can also just add in the factor of the several interactions we know Arthur Fleck and Thomas Wayne will have in the movie, some of which we've already seen in both trailers. So could it be him who bumps into the Waynes in Crime Alley? I mean, it very well could be, instead of someone like Joe Chill doing the deed to the Waynes, thus making it similar to, as I mentioned earlier, with Burton's Jack Napier story. I don't entirely mind this change, as one, this is an Elseworld story, and much has already been adjusted given the very nature of what an Elseworld story is, and two, it does fit in with the narrative of Arthur's descent into madness and seeming grudge against Thomas Wayne, who is also, by the way, being portrayed a lot less likable to your traditional depiction of Thomas Wayne. Also, despite knowing that Joker, as described by Brian Tyree Henry himself, who has a role in the film, is a story about how villains are never born that way, they're made, and what happens with the Joker is that you start to see how he really was this happy person trying to find hope in humanity until it broke him down and he just had to give up and reshape it. We will see Arthur this way at the beginning of the film, likely where his mother hadn't yet been hospitalized, as we have now seen teased in the final trailer. For example, where maybe he was laughing while bathing his mother in the first teaser trailer. But by the point of when we're seeing the Waynes leave the theater is another story. It's likely a very different Arthur Fleck, with Brian Tyree Henry even saying that it's also a story about a boy and his mother, being that it's going to be another thing we see, that he was capable at love at some point, but perhaps by the end, completely devoid of it, and not really feeling any remorse when taking the lives of two parents in front of a young boy down an alley next to this movie theater. And why would he spare Bruce? I mean, perhaps it's because he's already seen him before this moment when he puts a smile on his face as teased to us in that first trailer, or just the fact that he only really has a clear issue with Thomas Wayne in the film, and then killing Martha first maybe to ensure further torture to this man he has a grudge against. But there you have it, everyone. I thought I'd do another bonus video on the Joker trailer, just given the fact that I missed this out. I just thought it'd be very interesting to explore and have a discussion with you guys about how this could possibly go down. All we know is that, for sure, Thomas Wayne, Martha Wayne, and Bruce Wayne are leaving the theater that is, well, what we can see showing Excalibur. So what I want to hear from you down in the comments below is, do you think that it will be Arthur Fleck to kill them? As I said, I didn't initially think, even if they introduced this into the story, that would be the way it would go down. I mean, I thought it could go down, but do you also think that it could be one of the protesters, like a kind of consequence of Arthur's actions with this clown uprising, maybe? But, I have to admit, it is a bit more logical and makes more sense in terms of the story with the interactions we've already seen Arthur have and the grudge he has against Thomas Wayne, and vice versa. It's kind of more poetic, disturbingly poetic for Arthur to do the deed, but then again, it is kind of similar to Burton's Jack Napier. But who knows? It could just be that little scene and then we see a headline with them dying and we don't actually see it happen. Like, I don't know, Waynes get killed in riot protests, clown masks seen left on the floor. It could be, Elseworlds differentiated like that maybe. But that's the video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know you're enjoying the videos by leaving a thumbs up on it. It only takes 2 seconds of your time. Links to everything else, like my Discord server, in the description down below, to my social media. But thank you so much for watching, guys. Hope you have a lovely rest of your day. And I'll see you jokers in the next video. Goodbye.